Hello, everyone, and welcome to Big League Dreaming, the podcast, the show about baseball, dreams, and you know what? Baseball, dreams, and family. That's right. It's a family podcast. We appreciate you tuning in. Those of you that watched our last show, which was about the College World Series, we appreciate a lot of new subscribers after that episode. So thanks for joining us. And hopefully you enjoyed it because, well, you did. You must have enjoyed it. Why else would you subscribe? No, we really were humbled by it. We appreciate it. We just love talking about baseball and sharing our insights. Let's introduce today's sons that are on. Two of the three are joining us. Let's go all the way to Charlotte, North Carolina. Son number one, Zach Gonzalez. How you doing, Zach?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Yeah, it was a fun College World Series. Ty's prediction was pretty much spot on. Um, and yeah, I mean we got All-Star weekend, draft weekend coming up here in 2 weeks, and then after that it'll be trade deadline time. So July is always super exciting.
Yeah, you and I talked on text message and said we got to prep, get ready for our World Series All Star weekend because it's jam packed. Like you said, so much going on for a baseball fan. I'm kind of glad the draft went in that area, right? Because it's like now you've got all this stuff. The draft used to happen during the College World Series, and that was kind of a mess. But I like this the format that we're on right now. So. All right, let's introduce son number two. He predicted the correct winner of the College World Series. Let's go to Grand Rapids, Michigan with Ty Gonzalez. How you doing, Ty?
I'm doing awesome. Yeah, I was like Zach said, almost spot on. I thought Tennessee was going to blow them out in that third game, but that third game was really exciting. It looked there for a second that Texas A&M might have pulled off the upset, so it was exciting to see an exciting final series. But yeah, Tennessee won it, and they had a crazy good season.
Crazy good season, and you predicted a blowout in Game Three, and I thought you were going to be right because it was 6-1 there for a while, and I'm like, you know what, Ty is spot on. This game is on the verge of a blowout, but let's give credit to Texas A&M. They did not give up. Good program there, great coaching staff. I think they're going to be in it for a while. Of course, everyone's in it for a while through the transfer portal, and we'll have to devote a show to the whole transfer portal, how that's changed the game of college baseball, which is a good topic, and we know that everyone's following that whole thing. But let's talk about today's topic. I'm actually based in Grand Rapids as well, but today I'm up north in the beautiful Straits of Mackinac, Mackinac Island, Mackinac City, St. Ignace. Spending a couple days up here, but up here I'm also thinking about. I drove by a tournament game going on, right? Watching youth baseball going on, travel tournaments high in gear. The hotels I stay at, you'll see teams there getting ready for their games. Restaurants, you'll see players and their families all out. So we thought today we would talk. The topic today would be best advice to develop youth baseball players, and we'll kind of run through some of our tips and some of our thoughts about developing players. Let's go to Zach right away. Zach, what did you like about this topic, and what are some things you would bring up here? Because we're getting ready for the after the College World Series All Star break, we go right into the Little League World Series.
Yeah, I think it's a really good topic of advice to give to youth baseball players, right? Um, so when we were talking about this topic, I was thinking like, what kind of age are we talking about here? Because like, if I'm thinking about a young kid, 8, 9, 10 years old, my advice is like, hey, make sure you're always carrying your bat bag, your parents not picking up the stuff after you, little things like that. And then I'm thinking like high school kids, like my advice would be totally different. Um, so I don't know, what was your guys's like take? Like which direction do we want to go with this?
Well, me being the middle son, when I was kind of aiming for that middle age range, like 13, 14, like you're kind of a little bit older, but not into high school yet. Kind of 12, 13, 14, somewhere in there.
Okay, okay. So a couple of things that came to my mind right away, obviously, have fun, love the game, things like that. Because you got to have that love for the game to play, love to play the game and love to practice. Practicing is very important. That way you can, nobody's forcing you to go out and practice, throw the ball around with friends and things like that. You already just have that love and drive to want to do it. So that's very important. Be a good teammate popped into my head as well. But I I chose to pick something a little bit more specific for my advice to youth players, and I went with increasing your baseball IQ. So what I mean by that is always know where to be at on the field regarding certain plays. Always know where you're going to throw the ball before it's hit to you. Any kind of like because eventually there's going to come a day in your baseball career where the guy next to you is going to be better than you. And when the guy next to you is better than you still got to find a way to have an edge in the game. And to do that, if you're like one of the smartest players on the team, setting hitters up, I went with this sequence earlier. I'm going to switch up my sequence on this batter. Oh, I see he's standing way far off the plate. I'm just going to throw in the outside corner because he can't touch it. If you're smart with your baseball IQ, then that can give you that edge advantage in the game. Some ways to do that, like how do you increase your baseball IQ? I would say just consume the game as much as you can. And I think it's very important to go to games live because if you just watch stuff on TV and like clips and highlight reels, like, yeah, you can see, the stud shortstop making plays on the infield, but you're not seeing like other players in the field and where they are at positionally, where they're going, how the cutoffs happen. All you see is just the play at the plate. You're not seeing the double cuts and the first baseman covering second base, all those little things. Um, so trying to get to minor league games, college games, high school games. I mean, if you're able to go to major league games, if you live in the city, yeah, that's great too. Not everybody has that, are blessed to be able to do that, but that is that's the advice that I chose is increase your baseball IQ for youth players.
That's great advice, Zach. I had been thinking about that was one of if I had three things to do, that was going to be one of the three was baseball IQ because I think between all three of you guys, between Zach, Ty, and then Zane, who's not on the call with us, that's one of the things I think every coach always said to me is like your boys and your team, well, not just your boys, your team has a high level of baseball IQ. I remember the one time I think the kids were maybe 11, 12, 13 years old. And I remember Elliot Drain at shortstop catching the ball and then dropping it because he could set up a double, he could get a double play quicker, right? And I'm like, what player at 11 and 12 is already thinking through those scenarios? Line drive, oh, I'll drop it, easy double play, right? So having a high baseball IQ is so important. Ty, what about you? What are some of your ideas or some of your tips?
Yeah, so I love the baseball IQ, Zach. That was great. I went with like a different approach to it. I think some great advice to develop youth players would be to embrace the failure because and I don't mean like reward failure or anything like that. Like, hey, we got mercy, let's be happy about it, nothing like that. But more so like learning from your failures and learning from your mistakes because baseball is a game of failure and you're going to fail more times than be successful, especially if we're talking about hitting. You fail, 7 times, you're a Hall of Fame hitter hitting 300. So I'd say to coaches specifically to have your players embrace their failure and make that like the big coaching moments. How can you take that as an advantage? Like, how can you learn from your failures? How can you learn from your mistakes? So the next time you're in the game, you don't make the same mistakes instead of dwelling on the mistakes. Like, oh, grounder through the legs, like that cost us the game. But there's 8 other innings where you're striking out and grounding into double plays. So I would say, like, to coaches specifically, talk to your players about how can you learn from your mistakes and make something good out of them. Something that I remember when I was coaching high school baseball is I'd always ask the players that would strike out and throw their helmets. I'd be like, "Why are you throwing your helmet right now?" Well, I struck out. Yeah, that's not the last time you're going to strike out. I would tell them that you're going to strike out again. There's going to be other times you're going to make errors again. How can we learn from that? Why did you strike out? And some of the answers I would get is like, oh well, the ump the ump called it a strike and it was a ball, but you had 2 other strikes to use. So stuff like that, like you could have swung at the first pitch. I was right down the middle. That's still on you. So things like that, coaching kids and letting them know there's something good out of failure.
That's a great point, Ty. That's also a good advice. And I should tell people right now, if you're watching the podcast and and you're going like, well, who are these guys? I think between the three of us and the whole team of this podcast, we've got so many decades of experience, right? And I think a lot of people will find these videos on YouTube or listen to a podcast, and they will listen to the advice of former major leaguers or a former D1 baseball coach. All great, all knowledgeable, but let's face it, the majority of kids today aren't going to make it at that level. So what is working for someone that's been in the major leagues for 2 decades might be different from what's going to work for someone trying to get through a weekend tournament with your 12U team, right? There's some different things that you need to remember. And I think we bring that focus. Zach has played collegiate ball. Ty, you've played collegiate ball. You've both coached at all different levels. So you have that background of offering this sound advice. I have the background of just of raising 3 amazing kids, right, that love the game of baseball. And I will say both those examples are perfect. Zach, let's go back to yours real quick about your advice of the baseball IQ, right? And I think that as a coach and as a parent, so if any parents are watching this right now, that's our job to mold them, right? And also to emphasize how baseball IQ is so important to the game. Coach, if you want to get drafted or if you want to get a college scholarship, if a coach sees you have a high baseball IQ, you're going to have the edge. Ty, when it comes to failure, if I go to a game and I'm scouting and I see a player set down his helmet, set down his bat, talk to his coach, talk to his teammates, try to sit there, evaluate, grab his Gatorade or his water, and kind of like observe it, then get up and immediately start cheering for his teammates or passing on the information, right? He strikes out, he goes immediately to the guy that's on deck and says, hey, this is happening, this is happening. He's in the game, right? As opposed to focusing it all on himself. So great 2 tips. I'm going to offer my advice, and I can't wait to get your reaction on this, guys. So my advice is don't sweat it, especially for that 10, 11, 12, 13, 14-year-old player, right? Because you're going through a lot. That's a huge range. And some people develop quicker than others. And you guys know this, right? You can have a 10-year-old that's a beast, and by the time he hits 12, he's done. If you have a 12-year-old that's a beast, it's 14, he's done, right? So try to spend some time learning the game, learning from your failure, and then learning all the positions. I guess it kind of ties into baseball IQ. When I was a player, I remember I was 11 years old, 11 or 12, and we were doing practice, and I always was in the infield, either pitcher, first base, catcher, somewhere around that heart of it, right? Well, the coach sends me to the outfield, and I'm like, oh, I don't go to the outfield. What's going on here? I'm one of the better players on the team. Why is he sending me to the outfield during practice? And he's out there shagging fly balls too, and I caught a ball, and I'm like, Coach, I got to ask you, why did you put me out here? He goes, Gonzo, you need to know all the positions. He goes, what good is it of you if you're a pitcher and you don't know how to set up your outfielders? I'm like, oh, that's true. Or what if you're playing catcher and you see the right fielder is way too shallow? You've got to make an adjustment, right? You got to know all the positions. So don't get too stressed about I got to be at second base or I got to be at shortstop or I got to, start every other game, right? Be open to learning all the positions. At least that would be my advice. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I think that's great. And I love the story too, because that reminds me of some kids I coached because I coached freshman and JV ball, and it was like, hey, I'm going to have you play some outfield this game. And it's like, why? I'm the shortstop. Well, at varsity, you're not. You're going to need to know the outfield. You're going to need to know all their spots, because when you get to varsity, you're going to play wherever you can play at. So like you said, you need to know all the positions. So I like that a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like you've told me that story before, Dad. I feel like I've heard you say that outfield story before. But yes, it's very important to just be knowledgeable of all different parts of the game, because it could give you that one little edge that could help either yourself out or your team out. To win a game, win a championship, win a weekend tournament. But yes, love both of y'all's advice for the youth players these days.
I would also add, don't stress about being on the bench. I remember, one year I played. I was like one of the top. It was a roster of 13. I think I was number 13, and not because talent wise, it just that's how the coaching went. Right, coaches' kids played and all this stuff. I didn't sit there and complain about it. I just did it. The next year, I turned around. I batted fourth in the lineup and was the starting first baseman. Right, and I pitched. I pitched some of the games in the tournament. So a year later things change, but you just sit there with you be humble, you learn, you cheer on your teammates, and you learn the games, and it's your time will come. I mean, if you put in the work and you actually care about this game and you study the game, and if you have and God blesses you with the talent to play at that next level, you'll get there. At least that's my opinion.
Yeah, if you're always thinking about the game and sequences and what you would throw next to this hitter, uh, at all times when you're in the dugout watching your teammates at bats, when you're in the field thinking about what you would do, what you would look for, what the stuff looks like. That's really important if you're always thinking about it, because there's a lot of kids out there that aren't thinking about that at all. They're just out to lunch, out there having fun, and then you can go in and take advantage of that on the mound or at the plate for sure.
All right, let's wrap this thing up. Any last words of advice, Ty?
We could go on for forever. These are just a few of the topics, or few of the pieces of advice that we have to offer. We want to hear from all of you, though. Let us know in the comments. Thank you all for listening. What's some other good advice? Let us know if you got value from this podcast. We appreciate all you listeners, and give us some of your tips and advice in the comments to help develop youth baseball players.
Awesome sound. Zach, how about you?
Video games are good too, right, Ty?
Yeah,
Baseball
definitely
video
are.
games I mean, they help. You can see
They
the
do.
pitches and when to take the next base and when to steal, all that stuff. That helps as well. But Ty, I really liked yours. To pretty much don't be so results oriented at the plate and things like that, because you could square a ball up, line drive to the center fielder, he catches it, it's an out, but it's an out. Or you could hit a little blooper off the end of the bat, and then dad says, it's a line drive in the book, but you weren't trying to do what you were trying to do at the plate right there. So,
Yeah.
so yes, for sure.
Well, like Ty said, thanks again for following the podcast, Big League Dreaming, the podcast where we talk about baseball, life, and family. It's a father and his sons talking about the game, but also hopefully sharing some advice that you find worthwhile and will help you. Like Ty said, in the comments, let us know what you think, because we're trying to make this show better. We're on season number 4. We can't wait to get to season number 5, but we'll take it one day at a time. All right, folks, thanks again for joining us on the show. Ty, where can people get more information if they want to subscribe or follow us?
Yeah, you can give us a follow on TikTok at Big League Dreaming. We're also on X, formerly known as Twitter, at BLD Pod. That's at BLDPOD. And Big League Dreaming, the podcast, wherever you listen to your podcast. Give us a subscribe. Shoot us an email, bigleaguedreaming@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. And we'll see you next Saturday at 9 a.m.
Take care, everyone.